Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
Washington Pass?
Yeah, Washington Pass. Yeah.
Yeah, we have Washington and Rainy Pass up 20 going towards Winthrop.
Okay, that's the one. 20. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I got to tell you a great story if you want to hear it. It's about missing time and possible alien abduction on Washington Pass. And this happened to me. It was probably about 10 years ago by now. I was going over to a little town called Molson, Washington, which is in the very center of the state of Washington, right on the Canadian border. I had purchased some property out there in this area, and I was going basically making multiple trips over to north central Washington State to check on the property and do the final paperwork and those kinds of things. And my first trip over Washington Pass to get there, since it's such a northern route that I had to take to get there anyway, I decided to go as far north as I possibly could to go across the Cascade Mountains. And at one point, there is a massive glacier at the very top of the pass that is there all year long. It never melts. Matter of fact, I was there in July this first time. And it was so impressive that I pulled off to the side of the highway just to kind of look at the glacier and get some photographs, because it literally comes right down to the edge of the road, and it's quite unique. But when you look down the valley from that top point up there by Washington Pass, you see this unobstructed view of literally thousands and thousands of feet below you, and the whole looking west, the whole basically western Washington state. And I was deciding to take a couple of pictures up there, selfies basically, when I put my camera on my hood of my Isuzu Trooper. I call her Izzy, my bug-out vehicle. And got some real cool selfies of me standing there with the valley behind me and the beautiful blue sky that day. So I decided to take those pictures and then get on my wade back down or on the other side of the mountain and get over to the property. So when I come back home, I didn't notice anything unique or different while I was there. But when I get back home next couple days, and I'm back at work at my law office, and I noticed that when I got to work early in the morning, that the clock on my wall at the law office seemed like about 15 minutes fast. And I thought that was kind of weird because my watch basically was 15 minutes slow, and I figured, well, wait a minute. Could it be the clock on the wall is fast, or my watch is slow? So what I did is check the old computer, and of course, I'm noticing now that my watch is the one that's slow, about 15 minutes. And I didn't think much of it. I just changed my watch. But then when I went home that evening after work that day, this was like a Monday, I noticed when I turned my car on that the digital clock in my car was also 15 minutes slow. And I thought, whoa, what a synchronicity that is, that my wristwatch and my wristwatch was an analog watch, by the way. It was not a digital clock. They were both 15 minutes slow, and I got really curious at that point, and I decided to take note of that and write it down on my little notepad. But here is the kicker. When I got home that night, at that point I was diabetic, and I did my blood sugars, in the morning, in the evening, and that kind of thing. And that night when I was taking my blood sugar test to get ready to do some insulin injection, I noticed that my glucose meter, which has a digital clock in it as well, was 15 minutes slow as well. I'm going, holy. Now, the interesting thing is that my glucose meter was in the car, that I stopped on the pass. My digital clock on the car was there, of course, and, of course, my wristwatch. So I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of strange. When I started looking at some of the details of the selfies that I took up on Washington Pass, there were some very distinct saucer-shaped, or let's say ovoid craft in the background that when I blow them up in the background, because I'm taking a selfie of myself off the hood of my car with the valley below me, there are multiple objects in the sky that are very anomalous. So anyway, that's my story about Washington Pass. And I thought, wow, kind of weird that you even asked that question tonight.
I have a question.
Sure.
And well, I'm only asking because I know there's going to be people out there that would want to know too. From the story you were just saying, outside of when you're talking about seeing the craft, what were you thinking alien abduction? Where would that have come from? The 15 minutes. What do you think happened during that 15 minutes?
Okay, well, that's the thing. I run this group called the UFO I Team. We hear all these stories, of people have missing time they can't account for. And then, of course, some of them get regressed hypnotically, because we do have even experts in our group that regress folks, hypnotically, as well as going to other, hypnotherapists and getting the same kind of results. They'll tell the stories of being abducted, supposedly, and those 15 minutes or an hour or whatever time that they're missing seem to correspond to a time frame when they are being abducted. And of course, 15 minutes on a watch losing time really doesn't make a whole lot of difference as far as the reality of an abduction goes. People can be abducted for hours on end and basically only have a missing time of a few minutes in some cases. So that's kind of why I went there with the thought of what is the synchronicity, what is the percentage, the strangeness of having three different watches, two digital and one analog, being off at the same time, being in the same location. I thought that was kind of weird.
Now, with that, Michael, it could be abduction, and it could also be electrical anomalous, interference due to the craft.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we have also thought about the UFO I-Team's foray to Takalaka Lake as well, is that we had, in that incident, we had multiple team members' car batteries just die in the middle of the night. So much so that they had to get jumped in the next morning to start their car engines again. And it wasn't just the UFO I-Team that happened with that magnetic anomaly issue. There were other campers in the area of the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. At least 3 other campers in the area complained as well that their vehicles or their camp trailers just totally lost power in the middle of the night.
Can I ask you a question, Michael?
Of course.
Your wristwatch at that time, you said it was analog, but was it battery run or was it spun?
Oh, it was not spun. No, it was one of those battery powered with the quartz timing in it.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, I'd like to have one of those spin watches where you could actually wind it, and those are classic, but I didn't have that. And
if that was off by 15 minutes as well, that's one heck of a story. That's insane.
Yes. Yeah,
the aliens unwound it.
Well, yeah.
Like that. Well, that's just rude.
Well, we've all heard those stories of of different electronic interference with actually, I've told this story on FMP before, that we at Takalak Lake, the UFO I team actually had a car, an actual vehicle that didn't turn itself, but it got turned into a bar magnet at the site that we were camping at overnight. In other words, if you took a compass, and it took us a while to figure this out, but once we figured out it was the vehicle and it wasn't just a vortex anomaly in the area, we took multiple compasses, 2 analog, just basically Boy Scout compasses, and one of them was a digital compass off of a GPS unit that one of the members had. And we went around the car, and basically the front of the car had a magnetic pole pointing away from the front of the car, in front of the vehicle. When you went to the back of the vehicle, the magnetic north was pointing behind the vehicle, the very opposite way. And it is so strange. Matter of fact, the owner of the vehicle, Dan Weiss, who is the executive producer for Ambition Pictures, they were there with us recording the UFO I team on our investigation and doing some videoing. He took the car. He said it's a late model vehicle, very new, and he took it back to the leasing agent and said, "What's up with this car? It's got a magnet. It's totally magnetized." And they tested other make and model vehicles that were the same, and didn't come up with an anomaly like that at all. Matter of fact, they said they've never seen this kind of a thing happen to a vehicle, as well as the digital clock on that vehicle itself reset itself basically to the default time of 12 p.m. And we recorded that as well, and that the dealership, they had no idea how that clock could actually be reset to the factory specifications by accident, or anybody could even do it themselves if they wanted to redo it. It was like it was right off the assembly line, but it was magnetized.
And that was when you went to Mount Adams, correct?
Yeah, yes, that was what we call the
East City Ranch.
East City Ranch. Yeah. The Mount Adams incident is what we've been calling. We had in a span of 4 days, we had UFO up close and personal sightings that we caught on videotape. By the way, we had Bigfoot anomalies. We had even castings of large Bigfoot footprints. And then, of course, we had the magnetic anomalies and the vortex situation at Takalak Lake, and that's where we had the missing time. Of course, I didn't tell you about the missing time yet at Takalak Lake. That was more than an hour of missing time that we can scientifically prove that we had some kind of anomaly missing time there as well because of our instruments that we had with us.
Now, are you making plans of going back up there this summer?
Oh, yes, definitely. It's one of those things on our top of our priority is to get back. If we had all those fantastic and weird experiences at East City Ranch and Takalak Lake in a span of 4 days, we have got to hone in and really, by the way, we weren't just getting those experiences around the lake and or East City Ranch. We actually had a team that climbed to the top of Mount Baker, 10,000 feet up, spent the night there on the mountain, and ran into strange aerial lights that were focusing on the top of their tents, that there's no way that another hiker or any airplane could be doing this silent light thing on the roof of their tents at 3 a.m. That was strange.
It actually could have been, Michael. Back in 1939, they had an expedition up there that ended really bad, and people died up there.
Is that right? 1939.
Absolutely. 1939.
Well, and our team